So I am so excited. This is my guy. I've been meaning to do something with him. We talked about doing this probably like 6 months ago, maybe even longer than that. We've been chopping it up for years here in this YouTube space. We're going behind enemy lines with my guy, Craig Smith of the Lightning Round podcast. Craig, what is going on ahead of this week 5 matchup with the Commanders? How you doing, man, first and foremost?
I'm good, man. On here with my dude Lou. Like you said, it's been a long time coming. We've been
Yeah.
chopping it up for years.
Yes.
I still remember like all of the ways things are intertwined. Like there were the
Yeah.
Austin Eckler jokes, and then
Yep.
Austin Eckler became a good player, and then
Yeah.
Austin Eckler suddenly became a commander, and
That's
then
right.
all these different things. So
Right.
everything's good, man. Great.
Yeah.
Taking care of this family. Actually looking forward to getting to this game, which I'll be at this weekend. So that
Yeah.
should be exciting. But all around, man, just living day in, day out, doing the thing.
Loving it, man. Love to hear it. Always good to top it up with you. Good to see that you are in great spirits. So let's talk about the Chargers first and kind of get work our way up to the current events in this week 5 matchup. Were you surprised at the start of the season for the Chargers? You had 3 straight divisional games to start. You took care of all 3. The first one against the Chiefs was a big one. You guys have always struggled with Mahomes. Somehow he manages to pull it out every single time. But this time, I was shocked, to be honest with you, because your offensive coordinator is one that likes to feature the run game and then the tight ends. And so seeing the way that he featured Justin Herbert in week 1 and just pretty much turned Jay Herbo loose and like, hey, go win us the game, big fella. And that's exactly what he did. Speak to the start to the season, beating the Chiefs over in Brazil, and then talk about the 3-0 start, and then we'll work our way to the Giants game last week.
I ain't gonna lie, man. I was a little salty with the way the season got set up initially. Granted, like you mentioned, going 3-0 in the division is the biggest and sweetest payback.
Yeah.
I felt like the NFL kind of shafted us, man. Playing a quote unquote home game in Brazil against the Chiefs, where they've got that built-in fan base with all the international Swifties. So they had that thing packed out in red. And then also, you got where before it was the home team in both end zones, they split it this time, and you had the shield in the middle of the field. So nothing about that felt like a home game except we wore home colors.
Right.
So, you got that. You go take care of business, like you said. Herbert gets unleashed. And funny thing about that is it ends in very Mahomesian fashion with him taking off on the 3rd and long and ending the game on his own term with his leg. So it felt amazing. My best friend is a Chiefs fan, so I got to rub it in his face for the first time in forever. And that felt great. And then you come back into the States and then you have to travel and play Vegas. So still not another home game. You go and you take care of business there. Then you follow that up with a division matchup against the Broncos. And a Sean Payton fan, I am not. A lot of my family, again, is from Louisiana, so they feel a certain way about Sean. He kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit, but took care of business in a fantastic fashion, in comeback fashion. So that was a great experience as well. Kind of fell on our faces against the Giants for various reasons. We could probably, discuss how that kind of works in the Commanders' favor in this game, actually. But for the first 3 weeks, it was a joyride, man. Last week came down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, that one, I wasn't shocked that it happened because it felt like the perfect scene for something like that to occur. The unknown factor of Jackson Dart was going to add in an element that you really weren't going to be able to prepare for. And one thing we can say about the Chargers this year, for as good as a Jesse Minter coached defense is, this year you've struggled with mobile quarterbacks. So that element of adding in a mobile quarterback, I knew was going to be something. They were going to be juiced. Obviously, the crowd was going to be involved. And then I think the sun was a big problem. I've never seen Lat McConkey drop as many passes as he did in that game. And I don't think he could see into the sun. So there was a lot of different things that factored in to that game. But before we get to that game in particular, because I want to talk about that a little bit, Washington fans got to know. How is Benjamin St. Juste working out for you guys so far? We gotta know.
You're laughing about it, but here's the thing. So I found this really interesting because when the Chargers signed him, it blew my mind. I could not believe it. My son, my eldest son, who's a Commanders fan, I tell you about that. He calls me. He's like, "What are y'all doing?"
Right.
I'm like, I don't know, man. He's a bigger body. Maybe Minter
Mm.
just feels like he can play out on the boundary, play some
Yeah.
press or whatever. But I wasn't buying it.
Mhm.
Also, we signed Mike Williams, who retired, but
Right.
his last professional NFL touchdown was on Benjamin St. Juste
Right.
before he decides to call it quits. So my last memory of St. Juste in like a real game, not pleasant. But for some reason, Steve Clinkscale has found a way to not just like make him break even. He's kind of a net positive player at this point. And I said, if Clinkscale could fix him, then we might need to test Steve to see if he can walk on water too, because he's performing a downright miracle. And the dude is out there, like, you don't hear his name. And when the ball's thrown his way, I'm not seeing him giving up many receptions. I think he's got 2 passes defense. So right now, he's, dare I say, serviceable.
Yeah, I was impressed with him against the Giants. He had a pass breakup. He did his little seatbelt. Like, I was like, I think needed a change of scenery. I don't think he's terrible, but he had lost his confidence. He had no confidence left in Washington. He was a walking penalty. To me, he's more of a zone corner, which is the way you guys are utilizing him. I think they asked him to play a ton of man here in Washington, and it did not work in his favor. So, or even when they asked him to play man, it converted the zone, and he just didn't handle it well. Yeah. So, you guys are getting good play out of him, but I still feel like we need payback for Vato Davis that y'all gave us last year. That was just horrible. So, at some point, we need Benjamin St. Juste to break down on y'all the way that Vato Davis did for us, because that was a horrible transaction for us last year. And I know Chargers fans probably got a nice chuckle out of his performance for the Commanders last year. But when you look at the game last week against the Giants, in your estimation, what went wrong in that game to lead to the 21-18 loss?
It was a perfect storm of tomfoolery, believe it or not. So let's start with Greg Roman. The week prior, I want to say that Justin Herbert was hit 14 times, which ridiculous. You can't have your star quarterback taking a beating like that. But the Broncos had a really hellacious pass rush that was getting after him. And we were in a game in which, like, we're already down multiple linemen. This is before Joe Alt got hurt last week. And you're out there minus Rashawn Slater. You've got what we were down to. So backup right tackle, Trey Pipkins, who's now the starter, with Alt moving over to left tackle. And then we're talking about additional linemen coming in and out of the game. Pipkins was out multiple times throughout the game. So you've got a third right tackle in there. Then you've got, why am I drawing a blank on my man's name? Interior offensive lineman, Mekhi Becton. So Becton was out concussed. And so, you're just missing multiple linemen, but you're still asking your quarterback to go out there and sling the ball. And Herbert, threw on the cape and pulled off some heroics. But you roll into this week, and I'm thinking, well, Roman watched his QB get pummeled last week. Great that he was able to make it out and was able to will the team to a win. But do you now want to test that against a more talented defensive front? And lo and behold, Mans comes out there and asks Herbert to throw the pill around 41 times. And he just got destroyed. Then you do see Joe Alt go down. And by the way, you're a Notre Dame guy. You're a Golden Domer, so you know all about Joe Alt. Right. Alt goes out, and then they just unleash the hounds. And Herbert's being attacked over and over and over again. And then suddenly a shining knight steps up from the running back position by the name of Marion Hampton. 12 carries, only 12 carries for almost 130 yards, man. And some ridiculous runs, like channeling Juggernaut from the Marvel Universe on a couple of them. Right. And you would think Greg Roman, who's traditionally, like you mentioned, a run-first guy, wants to pound the pill, says, nah, we don't need any more of that. Just keep asking Herbert to sit back there on 5 and 7 step drops and see what he can do. And the game was never really out of reach. Right. Get it within the score, and you're still leaning on Herbert with no real pass protection and the pass rush getting after him. And the Giants had 2 possessions start inside of their own 10-yard line. Yeah. So, wild interceptions. One was tipped in the air. Herbert stops that, saves them 4 points, actually. Yep. Another situation where a pick is thrown where Tyler Conklin picks Ladd McConkey, and then and cornerback sitting there waiting on the ball thrown directly to him. So they started 2 drives inside of the 10, easy points for them. And that's kind of the difference in the game. So a lot of it, again, like I said, perfect storm, but also I'm putting a lot of blame on Greg Roman for not making the adjustments, because we needed old medieval Greg Roman, and he still was like infatuated with the idea of asking Herbert to go out there and save the day with no pass protection in front of him. I'm calling it protection because I'm using that word loosely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just again, perfect storm, but also an injustice, in my opinion, with regard to play calling on the offensive side.
Yeah, it was it was tough to see your rookie running back finally have a breakout game, because it felt like they really haven't given him an opportunity to really get active this season. He finally is showing you why you spent the first round pick on him, and to only have 12 carries against the Giants defense that was struggling to stop him seemed to be, like you said, an injustice and a disservice to what he had done in that game. Actually won, I think, angry runs for the week 4 because of one of those runs that he had, which was just utterly ridiculous. He was tremendous in the game. So talk to me about the temperament of this team after the loss. Are they pissed off? Are they kind of like, hey, we let one slip, let's get back on track next week? Like, what's the mindset of this team heading into the week 5 contest versus Washington?
So historically, from what we know of Jim Harbaugh-led teams, he doesn't really allow them to go into the tank. And you could tell the culture's been shifted since he's taken over. I think the mindset is to get back on track. Like, it's just kind of a blip on the radar. You can kind of Men in Black nebulize yourself and forget about last week, burn that tape and get right back to business. So I don't think they're hanging their heads at all. And even the leaders on this team won't allow that to happen. Like, Derwin James is the alpha. You could maybe even more so than Justin Herbert call him the heartbeat of the team. DJ, aka 3 the hard way, as I like to call it. Pause that if you feel so inclined. He's not going to allow it. And so I don't think they're going in with their heads hung or feeling like they could slide or not get off the schneid here. I think they'll be ready and willing to get going. And I do expect SoFi to be rocking. So crowd will be there in full throat, backing them up. So I don't think it'll be an effort thing. Being back in the comforts of your own home stadium is probably going to help. Second real home game of the year. So I think all that's going to play a part in it. And again, I trust Jim Harbaugh, so not really worried about it.
Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all of your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat in the games in real time with other users, get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips. Play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports the way they were meant to, together. Download the #1 sports app today. Predict the hottest football stats like passing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and much more to cash in on your daily fantasy football skills. Use promo code LTN and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. So I ask you the biggest strength of this team. You tell me it's what?
Actually, right now, the defense. As long as you're not putting them in precarious situations like last week, it was a lot to ask of them. And even with Jackson Dart kind of being an unknown, I feel like just the playmakers and the mentality and leadership on that side of the ball will help to carry the team. So like just looking at, they don't have a ton of superstars. Like, who Derwin James is, but names that people may not be super familiar with. You got Deion Henley at linebacker. Khalil Mack's out, but he's still on the sideline doing his thing with leadership. He's out for another couple of weeks. He's got like that arm injury. So you've got Tuli Tuipulotu, who exploded for 4 sacks last week. And you can call Jesse Minter Jesse Minstradamus, because he essentially called that last week, saying that, hey, they're going to come. And when it happens, it's going to come in bunches. Lo and behold, a week later, it does. But just guys at every level, even the defensive line, which is really stout. I mean, I would say the secondary is probably the strong suit of the team, but the unsung guys are probably your interior defensive linemen. Last year, Poona Ford was a vital part of this defense, and we lost him across the hallway to the Rams. And the Chargers kind of attacked that by replacing him with numbers. You had Tier Tart, who was a cast off, who's now just kind of sort of like that mean, nasty guy on the interior that I think the Chargers have been lacking for a long time. He's making plays every game. Deshaun Hand is a really athletic interior defensive guy that can get after it. And even this rookie, Jamari Caldwell, out of Oregon, has been playing like anything but a rookie on the interior. So I think, again, outside of the names that it's these lesser known guys that are stepping up and making a huge impact. But overall, if to a man, I would say it's probably the secondary. That's the strength.
And if I ask you, flipping that conversation on its head, what is the biggest weakness of this team right now? And let's move offensive line aside, because that's probably where you're going to go. And that's the obvious answer because of all the injuries and the turnover on that offensive line. What would be the next thing that you would consider the biggest weakness on the team?
Okay, so it wasn't this way 3 weeks ago, but now it is. And even with the performance last week, I think it's the running back room. Because right now you got Amari Hampton and really nothing behind him, because everybody knows about the Najee Harris injury. Like I've been saying it since it happened. Losing him was just a reminder that like some things just aren't meant to be. So like that 1-2 punch of he and Hampton would have been nasty. But again, I say it wasn't meant to be because we're talking about a guy who never missed an NFL game in his first 4 or 5 years. He signs to the Chargers as free agency, then proceeds to nearly blow his mug off in a fireworks accident. By the grace of God, recovers from that. And, he almost loses an eye, but recovers. And then his Achilles explodes in week 2, week 3. Like you can't make this stuff up. So now the Chargers have a backfield that's comprised of Amari and Hampton, and you've got some names out there, but nothing that is really going to impress very many people. Kamani Vidal is a guy out of Troy that I really liked a couple years ago in that draft cycle, but hasn't really stepped up. And really, when you're talking about a rotation, they don't have very much of one. They've got a few names here and there, but after Hampton, there's not a lot behind it. So if you want to remove the offensive line, the next weakest point, and I'm not trying to diminish what Hampton is or what he will be, but if something were to happen to him, then there's really not anything behind him to be competent that you feel comfortable in throwing out there for the entirety of a game. I mean, he took I don't think any other back had a carry last week. So I would have to lean towards the running back room as a whole.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the Michigan running back that Jim Harbaugh seems to be infatuated with, to throw him out there. I mean, at one point, I think he was returning kicks, and I'm like,
Hassan Haskins. Yeah.
He stinks. Yeah, he stinks. So
Haskins got busy during the preseason, but he's like another one of those, you know how they are. They're like big and rugged. But when they get to the NFL, they don't really pan out. He is like a core special teams guy, not as a returner. Like we should stop doing that.
I would really like you to stop doing that.
They did. They had Hampton back there for a spell, but then when Najee got hurt and Hampton had to take over full time, they had to pull him off of kick return. So I get it with Haskins. I mean, I don't love it either. And again, I think there's a very real reason why neither he or Vidal were a part of that rotation last week.
Yeah. I think they know what they're doing at this point. And they know what they have and what they don't have. So now you look at this week 5 matchup. But let me ask you about one more guy that I find very intriguing. And I was shocked because, I talked about Greg Roman earlier about how he normally conducts offense, heavy run game, tight end centric, doesn't really get the ball to the receivers all that much. Oronde Gaston II. He started to look like he was breaking out last week or the week prior, I should say, against Denver. How is he coming along? He looked good in that game against Denver.
Really well, man. So I call him OG double OG, of course, because, his dad, had a really solid NFL career from like the mid 90s to the early 2000s. So, man, OG double OG is doing the thing. Like during training camp, he was stepping up. I mean, on the call that they made, I mean, they took him in the 5th round. Harbaugh told him like immediately, we have a plan for you. Now, it didn't materialize in the first 2 weeks of the year, but then there was an injury in the tight end room. He got an opportunity. And this was one of those scenarios where, like, what's the old saying? Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And he was inserted into the fray and more than held up his end of the bargain. Like, he was a huge part of that comeback drive, getting several key catches from Herbert. And that'll give you a lot of trust in your young rookie. So I expect bigger things going forward. I think Commanders will see a healthy dose of him this week as well. So in the passing game, vertical threat up the seams. I'm working to the sidelines, super short-handed. and he's already showing out in a way that I didn't think was going to happen until maybe later in the year. But the dude's proved the lights aren't too big for him. So again, like I said before, I'd expect big things from him going forward.
Yeah, he makes me nervous because we struggle with the tight end position, period. And he's like another receiver out
Yep.
there. And so that's a guy that I look at this week and I see another mismatch that could prove very difficult for the Commanders to handle. If they can't get to Herbert consistently, he's going to be another guy that they can use to expose this Commanders defense. So when you look at this matchup, and you go into this game, what are some things you say as a Chargers fan? This is what we have to do in order to win this game. Give me about 3 items that you look at and you say, hey, we got to do these things to win.
For sure. So first off, protect 10 at all costs. You got to protect your star, the heart and soul of your team, your offense, particularly. Herbert has to be kept clean. So Greg Roman, no 5 to 7 step drops. Keep those few and far in between. So what you're going to have to lean on is the ground game, because you proved last week that you could do that. So you're going to have to, tack your wagon onto Amarian Hampton, let him get busy in the running game. If you're going to pass the ball, which you have to do, of course, you're not just going to put a muzzle on Justin Herbert. It's got to be quick game stuff. So get the ball out to your playmakers. One thing that the Chargers have, which I don't think a lot of people saw coming, is a very deep receiving room, and guys who really get it done after the catch. Quentin Johnston, which whole different conversation. That's that's a hot name. Oh, fun fact about him: my eldest son, the Commanders fan, played against QJ his senior year. QJ played at Temple High School, and I didn't realize who it was until we drafted him. And my son calls me like, "Yeah, you remember I played him?" Like, my son had to pick that game. I'm like, "Nah, I didn't remember that." He was like, "No." So he shows me a picture. But yeah, so you got
That's
QJ,
wild.
who's it's crazy, like the full circle thing.
Small world.
Absolutely. QJ's best aspect of his game is he gets busy after the catch. Now, catching the ball has always been the problem, but
he's catching it this year.
This year is different. So we want to give him full credit, fair and balanced.
Yeah.
So he's doing the thing after the catch. He's actually a number 1 receiver right now, which was not on my bingo card. Keenan Allen, we welcome back with open arms. One of my favorite Charger players of all time. The man's game is transcendent because it isn't predicated on athleticism. And like to this day, he's still like the Vincent Van Gogh of route running, in my opinion, from route running to like overall route running. So his release to his stem to his break, one of the best to ever do it. L.A.B. McConkey, who was the star last year, is now relegated to like wide receiver 3 duty, but you still have that in the tuck. And to be able to say that, and then know that you have that 2nd round pick in Trey Harris, who's barely seen the field, and Keandre Lambert-Smith, who wide receivers coach Sanjay Lal banged the table for this year. That room is really, really deep with young talent behind it. But again, sticking to what you asked, because I got derailed there. In the passing game, you want to utilize a quick game, also get some screens going, get your playmakers involved, keep that defensive line off of Herbert as much as humanly possible. Again, leaning on the run. And then if you're going to take your shots, you have to be strategic with that. So if the running game is successful, or at least they're having to respect it, then you can run play action. Last week against the Giants, they were still trying to cram play action down the Giants' throats, but the Giants weren't buying it. They were just getting upfield and ignoring it altogether. So we need some of that old school Greg Roman play calling, establish the run, get your play action going, get going in the quick game. And defensively, you got to spy Jaden. I know that he has a brace on, so you can tell me a little bit more about what you think about how he is, if he, he's going to be limited on the field, if they're going to deploy him in the run game very much or not. But you got to spy him. You can't let him be the guy that beats you on like those 3rd and long plays to keep drives on schedule, and end up being resulting in points because they're extended drives and your defense gets worn down. So those are going to be my 3 keys: quick passing game, play action off of the run. Was actually for the running game. So all of those working together hand in glove. And then on defensive side of the ball, you got to spy, whether that be with Derwin James or Deion Henley. You cannot let JD get busy.
So Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator, said that the whole playbook is open. That's why they held him out these last 2 weeks, to make sure that he was good, that when he came back, there would be no limitations and they wouldn't have to shrink the playbook and take things out. So I'm going to take him at face value and say that they're going to keep everything in. I don't anticipate a bunch of designed quarterback runs, although you may see him keep it once or twice. But ultimately, I do think he's going to continue to, run if running is the best option or the only option available. But I don't think you're going to see a lot of that. I think he's going to try. They're going to try to minimize his involvement as a runner in this game, if at all possible. Run the football, quick game, as you mentioned with Justin Herbert. And I think you're going to see them try to minimize his involvement as a runner. But they also understand that that's been one of the few things that have hurt the Chargers defense this season. So they are going to probably implement a little bit of that. I remember when he missed the vast majority of the Panthers game with the fractured rib. He came back the next week, and we just assumed that he wouldn't run at all. And they still ran him a little bit in that game. So I assume that they're going to run him in this game, even if it's, a couple of times, just to try to keep that Chargers defense somewhat honest. But I ask you three things that you think the Chargers have to do to win. What are three things you cannot have happen if you are to win this game?
You can't play from behind. I know that is a very blanket statement, but it's the truth. If the Chargers find themselves in a trail position for the majority of this game, I think they're in trouble because the offensive line just doesn't have the horses to hold up. If the game plan, I'm not saying that's the way it's going to go, but if they find themselves in a scenario where Justin Herbert's dropping back 35 to 40 times, then we're probably on the verge of losing. So you got to stay ahead of the sticks, down in distance. You have to be disciplined as far as penalties are concerned. And that's always been a staple of Jim Harbaugh offenses. Before last week, I think they had like 13 penalties for the year for like 100 yards. Last week alone, they had 14 for like 107, something ridiculous like that. Right. So you got to be disciplined as far as the penalties are concerned. You can't fall behind, and you got to win in the middle eight. I don't know what the statistic is. I don't know if there is one, but I'm fairly certain it's almost like gut feeling. I got to look this up and do my research, but I wonder what the win percentage is for teams that quote unquote win that middle eight. And the Chargers have been like on one side or the other of it this year. But so far, to start the year off, they found themselves in situations where they've kind of had to recover from giving up points like right before half and losing momentum, and then coming out and then like going 3 and out on offense, or having a struggle to really reestablish themselves on offense later in the game. So also, I don't fear it, but I would rather not have this come down to a final possession in the Commander's hands, because JD, like you call him, is one of them ones. Yep. And there's an opportunity there for him to win, whether it be with his arms or his leg, with his leg or his arm, which kind of leads me to something I want to ask you. Mm-hmm. What's up with the wide receivers? Because I'm seeing a couple guys not active right now. So maybe I should feel a little bit more confident.
Yeah, I feel the same way about Justin Herbert. I don't want him having the ball late in the game either. Like, it kind of goes both ways. I think in this game, it could come down to who has the ball last, honestly. But you asked me about the receivers. It's a mess right now. It truly is. So obviously no Terry McLaurin. He's out. There's a chance he might not play next week either. Noah Brown out as well. So you don't have to worry about either of those receivers. They've already been ruled out of Sunday's game, which we all anticipated. So it's really the same crew that you saw last week. And right now, Deebo Samuel is dealing with a heel injury, hasn't practiced all week. He was out on the practice field today on the side field. So that's good news. And he did get on the flight this afternoon out to L.A. They left early to kind of get acclimated to the time difference and get a little bit comfortable in the L.A. area. So he did get on the flight, and all the players that aren't playing in the game didn't make the trip. So he more likely than not is going to play in this game, but he really is all we have at the receiver position right now that you should be fearful of. The other guys are all complementary pieces that really are playing above the roles that they were, identified at being going into the season. Like, you got a rookie 4th round pick in Jalen Lane out there. You got a 2nd-year guy in Luke McCaffrey out there. These are guys that were supposed to be, 4th options at best, 5th, 6th options. You got Chris Moore out here who stinks, who we wanted nowhere near the field. We didn't even want him on the roster. Somehow he managed to weasel his way onto the practice squad, and then the injuries hit. And now he's on the active roster. So he's out there. We just signed to the practice squad Robbie Chosen, aka formerly known as Robbie Anderson. So it's bad out here, man. I mean, Zach Ertz is still doing it at a high level, and Jaden loves him. Like, he hasn't been targeted nearly as much the last 2 weeks because Jaden has been out. Expect a heavy dose of Zach Ertz this week. He'll be getting a lot of targets. Same for Debo, assuming health, and I expect him to be out there. But ultimately, it's going to have to be the run game. It's going to be Jaden. Cliff Kingsbury is going to have to call a hell of a game. Our screen game stinks. So teams usually blow up our screens. Either we get intentional grounding or it's blown up for a tackle for loss. So you can't really rely on that. It's going to have to be a steady diet of the quick game, the run game, and if an opportunity downfield presents itself, you take it. But who's going to get vertical? We really don't have anybody that's stretching the field vertically right now. So it feels, and again, Jesse Minter's defense usually doesn't give up a lot of, explosive plays. They keep everything basically in front of them. So I really don't think you're going to see any real explosive plays from this offense, but our receiver position is a mess.
Yeah. So you mentioned Mentor's defense doing a really good job at keeping the cover on the back end of the defense. Where they have fallen short this year and where they did give up bigger plays are against mobile QBs who can kind of, they'll reel the defense in and thinking that they're going to take off. And then you'll find a safety standing flat-footed, one in particular, another one of your Notre Dame guys, and Alohi Gilman. Alohi, I really don't want Alohi doing anything that's not 12 yards and in. More of a robber position. When he has to play the deep third, complete liability. Man, he was on the hook for at least like 2 of those plays so far this year. But they do a pretty good job at keeping a roof on the defense, except against these mobile quarterbacks who can kind of bait them into pursuit or getting flat-footed on the back end, looking at him scramble. And then finding somebody over top. So sometimes it's not even about having the most explosive type guy. It's just them not playing disciplined football on the back end and allowing those big plays to happen. But really, it's mainly Gilman, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, we're having issues with eye discipline and communication, and we've given up the most big plays this season of any team in the NFL. So we'll get stops on first down. We'll get you to 2nd and 16, 2nd and 17, and then give up 40. Give up 23 or give up 17. And that's been our struggle, man. We cannot get off the field due to our own incompetence. We were the #1 third down defense going into last week's game. And then last week we just imploded and gave up 50% to a team that had scored 22 points as their most output of the season. And they were averaging 14 points a game, and we let them score 34. And so it was just a mess. But, a lot of times when you have those types of games, it's almost like a wake-up call of sorts where, people have to refocus, and you're hoping that that's what transpires here because last week was unacceptable. It was really bad on all fronts.
Similarly to you guys, last week, a lot of what happened outside of just being like in less than ideal field position situations, we gave up a ton on third down. We get dart to third, and then he would either get it with his legs or bait the defense, like I said, extending plays and then finding someone open. He would find these holes in the zone. He did a really good job at doing that. I mean, the dude only threw for 111 yards, but I mean, I think they were like 7 for 15 on third down or something along those lines. So we just weren't getting off the field as often as we should have. So same thing, and hopefully they clean that up. But it's just a really wonky game all the way around. Somebody else that you're familiar with, Cam Hart is another one of our DBs.
Golden Domers.
Yeah, for sure. So Cam's somebody that I think could play a vital role in this game as well. I think #1 because he plays the run pretty solidly, and he's also one of those guys who doesn't have a problem with coming up and getting dirty in the run game and muddying things up for guys on those short passes, whether it be like slants, things of that nature. So looking forward to the matchup, man, in general. There's a lot to work with. There's a lot going on both sides, things that both teams have to clean up, but should be a fun one.
Absolutely. So last question, and I'm going to get your prediction for the game. Give me one name to watch in this game for the Chargers that can be super impactful, offense or defense.
I'm gonna say on the offensive side of the ball, to me, it's got to be Omarion Hampton. That's going to be the guy I think that's going to be the difference maker in this game, just because of what he can do as a receiver and what he does on the ground. Omarion Hampton is just going to be somebody who I think is going to wear on their defense. He proved himself to be a tremendous runner last week, but where he surprised me the most was as a receiver, because at NC. I would say he was a good receiver, but the majority of the passes that I remember him catching when scouting him were like shovel passes and short passes into the flat. Where you're seeing him last week catching like routes 7 to 10 yards downfield and plucking the ball out of the air like a receiver. So the fact that he's able to add that element into the offense and maybe taking advantage of maybe some of the elder statesmen on the Commanders' second level at linebacker. I don't want to be disrespectful, but there's a gentleman. I mean, he's doing his thing with regard to tackle. I think he might lead the league in tackles at this point, but
we can't have him in coverage one-on-one with Omarion.
Yeah, Omarion might be able to exploit that a little bit. And I'm not saying his name because like I said, Bobby. I love you, man. I don't want to do you like that. But I feel like the Chargers might do a little bit with trying to exploit him and using Oronde Gaston as well. So I would see, I think we'll see a ton of that. But I think Gaston's going to be the difference maker on the offensive side of the ball. And Herbert kind of sort of takes a back seat and allows the rookie to get busy.
I think it's the same way for us on the opposite side. You being a draft guy, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, we call him Bill, is a guy that is dynamic. We think he's got a chance to be one of the best backs in the NFL if he just gets more opportunities. I think he has 10 carries is his high for his career, and that was in week 1 against the Giants. And so he just hasn't had enough opportunities. We're clamoring for this guy to touch it because every time he touches, it feels like a movie. It feels like it could go the distance. Every, play he's on the field, they're violent cuts. He maximizes runs. Last week, he averaged almost 7 yards a carry. They just don't give it to him enough. And so maybe this is the week where they finally lean on him a little bit more and give him more opportunities to be a playmaker. And if he can finally get more touches, I think he can really impact this offense in a positive manner. So what do you foresee happening in this game?
Hate to say it, but I think it's going to be closer than what I would like. Just because I'm not sure about whether or not Greg Roman's going to do what he should initially. I think once he finds something that works, maybe later in the game, he'll stick to it and they'll make the adjustments from there. But early on, I feel like Roman just has this call sheet with his plays that he wants to run, and he's going to get through that entire call sheet first before he makes any quote unquote adjustments. He's going to do it regardless as to what happens in the game. So I think the Chargers find themselves in a situation where they're not trailing heavily, but maybe like, a field goal or so lead, and they're not necessarily feeling like they have to press, but they get into the second half and the running game really starts to take over. Jim Harbaugh's brand of football, Greg Roman's old school brand of football kind of leans into that Commanders defense a bit and wears them down, and they find a way to get ahead. I still think it's going to be like a 3-point game. So I'm calling it Chargers 23-20 with them maybe having a walk-off field goal to end it all. So again, I would rather a Chargers blowout. I'm not going to be disrespectful, but by the same token, the offensive line is a complete mess. So I'm just curious as to what the strategy is going to be out there on Sunday. But if Roman gets knocked in the head a few times, hopefully he has somebody like giving him some neck, like last week while he was throwing the game plan together. Hopefully he has some sleepless nights. And, he was able to pull it together to understand that right now you can't ask Herbert to be the end all be all. You got to use all of your pieces, and specifically that horse you got in the backfield. You're going to have to lean on him until some of these guys get back healthy. And then, if you want it to be the Herbert show at that point, then fine, the way that it started the season. But for right now, you're going to have to grind some wins out. So I think this is going to be one of those types of matchups where it's pretty close up until the end and the Chargers find a way to win a close one.
I pray that that's the game plan, because the biggest asset right now for us is our run defense. Right, that's the one thing that we do well right now. We stop the run, especially in between the tackles. Now, if you want to go off tackle, like the Falcons hurt us because they're one of the true outside zone teams in the NFL. Anything outside on the perimeter, we just don't have the foot speed. So if you want to run the ball against us, off tackle, outside sweeps, tosses, that sort of thing, that's where you're going to get a lot of your success. But if you're trying to run in between the tackles against this defense, you got another thing coming. And that's what we hope the Chargers' identity and plan is in this game, is to try to run between the tackles, because that plays right into the hands of the Commanders in this game. That's the one thing that they do exceptionally well right now. So we'll see what happens. The biggest thing that they can't do, which is what they've done on the road right now, I've been talking about this all week. Right now, in the first half of games, the Commanders at home hold a 34-13 advantage at the halftime break in their two home contests. In the two road contests, they've been down 31-13 combined score. We've gotten off the slow starts. We've been down 2 scores in the first half of each of our road games. We haven't led on the road at all this season at any point, not for 1 second this year. We've been chasing 2-score, deficits all season long on the road. We've been sluggish to start games, and if it happens again, I can't see us winning this game. We have to get off to a faster start. We have to play, not necessarily from ahead, but play with urgency. We haven't done that on the road this year. If it doesn't happen in this game, I can't see us beating a good team like the Los Angeles Chargers. But I think with Jaden coming back, it's a homecoming for him. He said he's got a lot of fans coming, a lot of family coming. Bobby Wagner, same deal. So we're hoping to have a lot of guys there, a lot of support for the Commanders there. That boost, coupled with him being back in the lineup, and hopefully this defense being scolded this week for the performance, and that offensive line that the Chargers are putting on the field, I think that might be the perfect storm for this team to, like you said, pull out a close win. It won't be a blowout on this end. If we win, it won't be by 2 scores or anything of the sort. It'll be like 26-20. It'll be 23-20, something along those lines. I'm right there with you as to how this game is going to play out. But ultimately, I think the Commanders, I think the more desperate team wins, and that's the Commanders. Like, you guys have a cushion. You can fall to 3-2 and still be okay. We can't lose and fall to 2-3. Like, the Eagles are 4-0. Like, if you have any aspirations of winning the division or staying tight to the Eagles, you have to win this game. And I think there's a lot of scrutiny that the staff is under right now. And I think this is a trip that they needed. That's why they took the early trip. And I think they're going to find a way to get it done. So it's going to be a fun game. I can't wait to watch your post-game show. Those are always fun to watch after you guys' performances. So looking forward to it. Looking forward to chopping it up with you in the future. And I appreciate you coming and blessing the program, man. And we got to do this again in the future sometime.
No, for sure, man. And I really appreciate you having me on. Like I said, it was a long time coming. So, I enjoy chopping it up with you all the time. So yeah, for sure. Guys out there, thank you for viewing this, taking some opportunity to listen to some Chargers talk. It hasn't been worthwhile for a few years, but I think it's on the proper trajectory nowadays. But again, Lou, you've always been a huge supporter, and I will continue to do that with you as well. And yeah, for sure. Maybe we see each other later on down the line out in Las Vegas, maybe.
Yeah, that would be nice, man. What is it? It's San Fran this year, right?
No, you're right. Is it
Santa Clara, right?
It's San Fran. I said Vegas, right? Okay, my bad.
Santa Clara. Yeah, that'd be nice. That would be nice. I would like that. So I got all your information down in the description. Anybody looking to check out Craig's work, I will have the links down in the description of this video, man. I appreciate the time as always, man. And continued success for your team the rest of the season, just not on Sunday.
I feel you, man.
Craig.
For sure. Thanks, Lou, man. Appreciate you guys.
LouieTeeNetwork.